This is a groundbreaking episode, y'all, because it's our first with a fishing couple. Fisherman author Terry Evers reached out to be on the podcast to talk about his memoir, 15 Seasons. And when he mentioned that he had been married to his wife, D'Ann, for 36 years, I was even more thrilled to have him on board. Today, Terry is joined by his POCF D'Ann, where they'll discuss 36 years of marriage and his book, 15 Seasons, a memoir about the bond of a fisherman and his son and a vibrant Oregon fishing community. I'm Megan, host of the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. This show is dedicated to girlfriends, fiancés, and wives of commercial fishermen to connect and feel less alone. As we know, this lifestyle isn't for the faint of heart. So this is our space in the world to discuss the highs and lows of being in a romantic relationship with a fisherman. Because it's different than being a family member or friend. It just is. Join in to laugh, vent, and share stories with others who get your lifestyle. So what are you waiting for? Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. This one is super fun for me today because two of my favorite subjects to talk about is relationships and writing. And today we have both. We have fisherman author Terry Evers and his wife, D'Ann, where they're going to discuss 36 years of marriage, so incredible in the commercial fishing industry, and his book, 15 Seasons, which is a memoir about the bond between a father and son while working on a commercial fishing boat during the summer. So I appreciate you both for being here. Welcome, Terry and D'Ann.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting us.
And where are you guys where are you from exactly right now? Where are you guys calling us from?
We're from Kaiser, Oregon, which is really just right outside of Salem, Oregon, almost really part of Salem.
Nice. Okay, great. So, all right, now for the juicy, fun, relatable, loving relationship questions. Would love to know. How did y'all meet and how did you know each other were the one?
Well, I was fishing at the time, it was kind of in the middle of my whole fishing career thereabouts. And so I was actually at that time working on a crab boat. I had just got out of the Coast Guard. I said spent 4 years in the Coast Guard and doing some fishing whenever I could. But I got out of the Coast Guard and did 4 years. And I was working on the back deck of a crab boat out of Newport, Oregon. And so anyway, I was doing that and I was working with one of my best friends. And so anyway, I was spending a lot of time over at his place with watching basketball games and just hanging out. His wife probably was getting kind of tired of me hanging around.
Well, they weren't married yet.
Well, they weren't married yet. I guess they weren't. But yeah. And so anyway, I was around a lot. And so I think she needed a reason to find me something else to do. So anyway, she said, "Yeah, there's this girl that I've cut. She was a beautician, so I've cut." Yeah, and you worked with her, right?
I worked with his fiance. I think they were at that time at a department store and in Corvallis, and she kind of just gave me this slip of paper that gave me his name and number and said, you should meet him or talk to him on the phone. And so then he called me and we talked for over an hour, not knowing anything about each other at all and stuff. And then that set us up for a blind date basically after that. And so that's kind of where we met.
It was kind of miraculous because she lived in Corvallis. I lived in Newport. That's about an hour away over the Coast Range. So I drove over when we weren't fishing, and it was like a Tuesday night or something, which was just kind of dead in Corvallis. It's a college town that, no one was really out that night. So we went to a movie. I think it was like Police Academy 4, some terrible movie. And then we went out. Yeah, and there's nothing open really. There's just some diner, Sherry's restaurant or diner, something like that. And so I thought, well, that'll probably be the end of this. And went back, and next thing you know, kind of making the drive back over and seeing each other.
Well, I had this picture in my mind, because I have this the stereotype picture of a fisherman, the the overalls, the long hairy beard, the shaggy. I don't know. This was in my mind what it was going to be like. And then he shows up with these all clean cut and OPs on, back then when it was the neon shorts and all that stuff. And I'm like, and I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be okay.
Oh, that's so wonderful. How long were y'all together before you got married?
Probably, was it 2 years? I think it was 2 years before.
Yeah, about a year, a little
close to that.
Under 2 years, probably.
Okay. And then D'Ann, so your experience with Fisherman was basically the Gloucester Fisherman statue, which is totally understandable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I grew up going to the coast with my family, and it always be rainy and I didn't really have a great experience when I went to the beach growing up, and the fishermen were just, in their little orange suits, fishing. And so yeah, I was not expecting what Terry when he showed up and stuff. And so, yeah, I had a whole different look in my mind. And so,
yeah, I love it. And so y'all have 2 beautiful daughters now. And how old are they? What are their ages?
They're all grown.
31 and 26.
Wow. That's so beautiful. And
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I think she's 27.
Yeah. We're losing track.
Losing track.
And then 2 granddaughters.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Congrats on that.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
And so did you both know that you wanted kids when you got married? And also, I'm just diving into the commercial fishing part. Here we go. Did you have a discussion about your roles when Terry would go out fishing, or was this something that you both kind of learned as life progressed?
On kids, I think we talked about it, and I think just as time went on a little bit, then that became definitely something we wanted.
It was about 5 years in before we had kids, because as Terry was fishing, things changed, and I guess that comes a little bit more into his story and his timeline. But he went to school and went into teaching. And so we kind of waited till school was done and stuff like that before we had kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as far as, the fishing, that was new to D'Ann, certainly. And when we first met, I just got out of the service. And so that's what I wanted to do at that point, is year-round fish. It was kind of a time when our dory fishing, the salmon seasons were really curtailed, wasn't really profitable. It was really an unknown whether we'd continue. And so my grand plan was to do that and then work year-round on other boats. And I wasn't so sure I'd ever get to work on my boat again, just because it might not be profitable. So that was an unknown at the time. But I'd got back and I was on a really good boat with a good, crew, good friend and good skipper. And I was in a really good situation I'd landed in. And so that was my plan. And then as time went on, I ended up going back to school. There were a couple other fishermen that became elementary teachers, and that kind of planted a seed. And next thing you know, I'm enrolling in school doing that and fishing in the summers. But anyway, D'Ann was, I think, at first not sure quite if I was going to be year-round fishing, if she was up for that or
not. I wasn't sure I was even all in on this or not, because the couple that had introduced us, he was out for the long, because he was on a larger commercial boat. They were out for a couple weeks, of fishing and stuff. And I didn't think I could do that. That wasn't what my dream future looked like. So there was some question about, if I could. And then when he kind of changed his scope and his direction at some point and decided he was going to fish his boat and go to school and go into teaching, that just kind of fit a little bit more into what I kind of looked at the future as.
I think first, when I started my boat back up in the, for summer fishing, I think I was all fine and dandy on paper. And then when it came down to it, getting the boat ready in the spring, and I think all of a sudden it kind of hit, how are we going to do this? And, we were newly married. And so we were going off and doing everything together and everything. And then all of a sudden I'm going to work on the boat on the weekends, and then getting it ready and heading over the coast on weekends when I wasn't going to school to start fishing. And then, off in the summer, we had a small trailer. We just park over there. And so, it took some transition, but it also worked out.
Yeah, it actually, I got to see the commercial fishing, Newport and the coastal in a whole different light and a whole different view. And it just helped me appreciate it more. And so, I went out like with him twice and I didn't get seasick. So I was like, okay, I'm good. We're going to stop it twice.
There were perfect days because that season, the first one I kind of resumed again, the seasons were still curtailed, but you could catch 50 coho a day. And then there was a ratio after that of other fish. But so normally in most years, I'd still keep you out there all day. That year it was just lights out. And so we were putting our gear down, and what we did is troll for salmon. We weren't net seining or anything. It's a hook and line troll with hydraulic or hand cranking your gear back up. And so you're catching fish hook and line. So anyway, most years, you didn't have to worry always that you're going to get 50 fish a day. But that year we were getting them by 9 a.m. And we could have caught 150 fish that day, every day. And so it was perfect for D'Ann. I said, chances are we'll be back in for breakfast this morning. And it was calm weather, relatively. And so I said, so she just came out and, we did the morning run. And then after that, you kind of look at each other. Can't catch any more fish this year. It's just the way it is. So we went in and she did great. She steered the boat back while I cleaned fish, and it was a win-win. Then we had the rest of the day on the beach.
Sounds nice. I know. I think it's so important, if possible, that partners are able to go see their fishermen's boats, because some of them live in different parts of the country and their fishermen go to Alaska. And, for years, I didn't know what really Chris did or what it looked like. And so to have him in a day fishery for the spiny lobster in California and to actually go out with him and see him work just put entirely new
absolutely
was possible, and love and pride on also, and being his partner, is like, oh, it does take us all to do this. I do feel happier to make dinner for him and to provide these home shoreside support because I know how hard he works. So
absolutely.
That's lovely. How did you, D'Ann, if I may ask, do you have family nearby, or did you have a support system when you had young children, for example, like the Newport fishermen's wives, or anybody, or neighbors, or anybody that you felt like you felt support from?
Well, we didn't really when the girls were born. Terry wasn't fishing at that point. He had completed he had gone on to school, and because the fishery, explain that.
Well, that was 92. And that year was kind of the breakoff year. And the title of my book is 15 Seasons, and that had concluded at that point. And that was a big unknown at that point of what I had hoped to fish. That was the plan. But several things happened that for the 92 season, these seasons were drastically cut again, to the point where most of the small boat fishermen did not even fish that year. And so we were just kind of waiting to see what would happen, if 93 would perk up again. And our oldest daughter was born that year in 92. And I had just started this teaching career. And so, all of a sudden you've got a master's course to take, or in the summer, or those types of things start popping up, that you just find out about when you get into it. And so anyway, we didn't really, at that point, we never ended having the boat and children to deal with, and how to do that.
Right.
if we had, we would have figured out a way.
Oh, yeah, because
yeah.
we do have family. I had
Mhm.
family in Corvallis, and we lived in Corvallis when we first got married for about 5 years, and then moved to Kaiser. His parents lived here in Salem, and so family was right here and stuff. And so then, so yeah, so we didn't really have to rely on family when he was fishing, because it had kind of changed. Our dynamics had changed at that point.
Yeah, I've often thought of, how we would have
Yeah.
done that, because it's not something I really wanted to give up at that point. And so we would have made it work. We might have had to kind of scale it down a bit and then
Yeah.
figure, and eventually how it fit into the family. But
And I wish that we kind of
I do too.
it would have been fun for the girls to see.
I would
They
love
see
that.
pictures, and they heard stories, and they've read the book, and they've heard, his father explain it. And
Mhm.
like Terry had said, he and his father could talk about it like no one else understood and stuff. And so, but I know the girls would have loved to have been a part of it. And we
Yeah.
still have the sign from the back of the boat in our garage, hanging in the garage, and stuff. So it's very much a part of our family, except they just haven't been a part of it.
That's fascinating. So what kind of teaching did you do? What was your teaching career like?
I taught elementary. Most of it was in the classroom. Did a couple little odd, gigs supporting teachers, but mostly in the classroom. And then right now, actually, I'm teaching near where I used to. That's just as a specialist it's called STEM, elementary STEM. So I'm teaching kindergartners through 5th grade science, technology, engineering, math. That's kind of like when kids go off to music and PE, they go to STEM also. So that's kind of always been my love of doing that type of stuff in my teaching.
I love that. So, you're actually the second fisherman I know who's a teacher, because my husband, who he bought his boat in Dennis, Massachusetts, and the fisherman was also a history teacher as well.
Oh,
So,
wow. Yeah.
the parallel careers that people take, transitioning in and out of fishing, and so the transition emotionally was hard, but what was that like to just jump ship, if you will, but like to get, to sell the ship and like transition to a different life? Like, how was that for you?
I was busy enough, especially when Kelsey, our oldest daughter, was born. And, and we had a new house. We had a fixer-upper house that we bought, and that kept me very busy. Daughter and new town again. And so
A new job.
So all that kept me busy. I really missed the fishing, though. It felt really weird being home in the summer. And over here, we call it the Willamette Valley, in the valley. I was always used to spending a majority of my time over at the coast. So I missed it a lot. And I was kind of figuring I'd get back into it. And, as the years went on, I just always missed being on the water. And I was just busy enough. We didn't have another boat or anything. And that was hard. I'll admit it was really hard, and getting used to that in the summer. It just always felt like, it's summertime means being out on the water. And so it was kind of woven into the DNA a little bit, but there were other things going on, and new adventures, and it's just what it was supposed to be.
Thank you for sharing that. I know it's very vulnerable in the sense that it is such a transitional, pivotal moment for people to decide to make that huge change, that I think it can almost be scary to make that next leap, because they're not sure what's on the other side. So to hear like how you had a purpose, you had, your children, your home, you had a new job, that helped keep you focused to, gently bring you to your new chapter of life.
Yeah, well, the grand plan was, teaching, and then in the summer fishing. And I got to do that 1 year, and it worked 1 year. And then that's when the wheels fell off of the industry. So,
yeah. Got it. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And so within that career span, what is your favorite memories working together through the commercial fishing lifestyle and, the ups and downs of the industry. Do you have something that stands out to y'all as, wow, we handled that together,
But I think it was, excuse me, one was just the traveling back and forth to the coast, because he still initially had a trailer over there. So it was like I had a full-time job in the valley. And so kind of going back and forth, driving, was working through that, scheduling, and thinking he was going to go out, didn't go out because of the weather, or did go out. And then financially, of course, because you never knew what he was going to bring in or what it was, and trying to pay for school. And I was working, but, just all the trying to juggle the finances, I think that's I don't even know how people do it, financially, working through that and knowing and stuff. But I think that was the hardest. We were just enjoying. Yeah, I really, like I said, kind of started falling in love with the coast and still newlywed. So, when he was still fishing at that point. So we had a really good time. And, but it was challenging to know what the future was going to hold with all of that.
Understandably, that is definitely relatable. I think everybody listening can understand that.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's a big question. I'm sure many people want to know. How have you kept, what has been the secret to keep your relationship so strong after 36 years?
That is a good question. Well, I think that for one, he is truly my best friend.
Mhm.
He's just, for Terry, I can count on him for anything. We've been through some health trials a few years back and stuff, and he was just right there for me and stuff. And it's going to make me cry. But he's just worked so extremely hard. I mean, kind of like he did with his fishing. He worked so hard and kept, just his boat immaculate. And he just works hard at school and 33 years of teaching. And, and then he's so good to the family and takes such good care of us. And he adores his granddaughters. We've got a 2.5 and a 6-month-old granddaughters, and they're just our life and stuff. And so there's just, there's been challenges, definitely, taking care of aging grandparents and stuff. But, I wouldn't personally want to do it any other way. And
Yeah. And like she had said perfectly, best friend. I mean, there's a lot of things we like that we like to do. We've always loved to do together. And, even if it's just short, not like always a giant trip, but just a road trip.
Mhm.
We do a lot of those, just kind of get in and go on a hike, or sometimes just to drive or run to the coast, or she'll watch me go kayak or something if she didn't want to go out. And so she's patient with that, and real patient with letting me I kind of like to have my space at times, just to kind of like go kayaking or do something like that. And she's really good about just allowing me to have that space when I need it, kind of recognizing that. And I don't know, we just, when there's storms, they're worth weathering. We don't go back to port. We ride it out, and yeah.
Well, he's kind of replaced not really replaced in his heart, but now he kayaks on the water versus, commercial fishing and stuff. And
you get a saltwater fix still, and bays, and a little bit of the ocean occasionally dipped out there, but love still going over there. And just, I don't fish over there, but I just explore, and from a whole different vantage point, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
Enjoy the water without the pressure of a paycheck.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of found out, and that's what I do include in the book, that later on, as I started all this with a kayak, is that, well, I love the fishing and all that, and that there's a adrenaline rush with all that, and just I love that. But there was probably the underlying is just being there on the water. And, if you got a fishing boat, you can't just sit there and admire the scenery all day. I mean, I got a job to do, but without that pressure, like you said, it was just truly being there and being part of it and being on the water and just all the whole sensory experience that I didn't probably realize that to that extent until it's when it's gone, you really start to understand that at a whole another level,
Yeah, that's a great point. Also something to think about if you're transitioning out of fishing, how can you still have a water element implemented into your life, into your routine?
But I really didn't until, when was it? 20, it was a long time. I mean, I went out on the water a few times with a few things, but not much. And so getting back out there, it was just like, wow, okay. And I had other things to do. I had other missions in life. So, I wasn't sitting around. We were busy. And those were great times too. So, but you just start realizing it was time to get back. So,
I love it. Okay, we have 2 more questions with D'Ann. I really appreciate her being a part of this interview. So, looking back, would you do anything differently, or is there anything you would do differently, or are you happy the way things are? Is that even a question? I don't know if I even phrased that correctly, but
yeah. Looking back, you always in the moment go, oh, wish this or that, but absolutely not. There's, it was, like I said, with his fishing, it kind of opened my eyes to something different. I was working in a job where, the men wore the suits and stuff. And I'm like, Terry, why don't you put a suit on, or something like that. And that was the last thing he ever wanted to touch, and so, but, it's just been an amazing run. And so there's really, really not anything that I regret or wish to be differently and stuff, especially when you see my daughters and how happy and granddaughters. There's just, life is good.
That's wonderful. And what does being a commercial fisherman, what has that meant to you, Terry and D'Ann? What has being a partner of a commercial fisherman meant for you?
Well, being that I wouldn't have traded that for anything. And that's where I really dive in the book about just all the different elements. Maybe I could save that one, but it was that was a life-changing experience for me. I mean, I can't imagine what life would have been without that. I don't know. But yeah.
And I know when I first started dating him, and he was fishing in these boats, and I was just like, really? Do you really want to be doing this? And you sure? And stuff. And it's just amazing how hard they work on those boats. And I was so impressed with them and the people that he worked with. And so commercial fishing is just it is really amazing, because we absolutely love fish. I didn't eat fish, maybe when my dad caught some trout or something, but that was very rare. He's not here to, but the fish, and Terry knows he's an amazing cook. And so he knows how to cook the fish. And so it's just helps me appreciate the industry so much more after all that we've been eating of the fish, and how hard they work to get to that, because he did the crabbing and all of that. And it's kind of amazing, but I love watching that. And I even watch it, the shows on TV of the commercial crabbers and stuff. And so it's kind of amazing.
I love it. Well, thank you both for sharing your relationship with us. That was really special. And now we're going to talk about the book writing process. And Deanne, I know you probably may have some input as well. Who knows? I mean, during, as somebody who's written a book, I'm sure that, that workflow affects maybe the household in a different way. Maybe you need to go off and write for a certain time or blah, blah. But anyway, I say that personally because my husband and I have this agreement where I work from basically 6 a.m. to noon. We'll talk if needed, but up until then I'll answer calls, but it's work only. And then I open my brain and my heart up for other things. But this is where these questions are coming from, that perspective. So I'm throwing this out there to y'all. So Terry, I would love to know, let's get into how you got into writing in the first place.
It started, well, when we were fishing, and fishing with Dad, and then I did some fishing solo when Dad would eventually kind of change his schedule. We kind of flip-flop roles over, I kind of took it over and he came along, and just like when I was a kid. But anyway, I always kept this fishing log and journal. I wasn't a very good writer, as a child, even compared to other kids. I just wasn't that great, but I kept a fishing log nonetheless, and every day of just kind of what happened. And it wasn't real long, but a paragraph maybe or less. But so I would keep these logs, and I'd keep all sorts of data. I'd write the wind and the waves and where we fished and what we caught. I kept all the records and stuff. And so, and I'm not sure where I got that idea. And maybe Dad said something, but anyway, I did it, and I enjoyed. It was exciting to go home or go back to the trailer, I guess, back then, and write down, what happened. And so I had this mishmash of fishing journals and stuff over the years, and still packed with some stored what's left in my brain. But it's so I had that, and so Dad in the early years said, someday after seeing all this, you go, yeah, you ought to put that together someday into something, a book or something. I go, yeah. And then as time passed, Deann had mentioned, you ought to put it in a book or do something, and you think, yeah, but I wouldn't know how to do that. And, it wasn't until college that I learned how to write. I wasn't a good writer in high school or anything like that. I, just out of necessity, you do sink or swim. And so I started figuring some things out. But probably where I learned to write the most was actually teaching. And I, over time, giving these assignments out to kids and different modes of writing, whether it was imaginative or narrative or, more doing research or, whatever. And descriptive writing, we would get into that. And so I would write along with my kids back then on the overhead or the document camera or whatever, and model that. And, I would do the assignment too, and kind of give the kids an example of what to do. And over that is the more I learned about writing and teaching writing, I kind of fell in love with it. And I really enjoyed when I got to do some of the assignments. I didn't like grading it. That's a whole other story. That's a whole other bit of work. But I enjoyed the writing. And so then it was about 2018. It was in the summer. And I've done most of, I really have finished about all the master's courses I could and stuff. So I get a little bit more time in the summer. So I just started writing. And I contacted an author that was real accessible, who had written some kayak adventure books. He had kayaked around Ireland and New Zealand, I think. And he lived up in Port Angeles, and I actually wrote a letter to get a hold of him. I found his address, and we got a hold of each other. And he just said, just start and just picture somebody sitting in a chair and you're telling the story. So I wrote that, and I wrote it for 2 years. And, sometimes I would be kind of by myself doing it. Other times I'd be just watching a Trailblazers basketball game or whatever, and just writing and messing around with it over time. And 2 years later, I had 107,000 words or something like that. And then I'm looking at it, and I like what I have, but I know it's not publishable, and I certainly needed to be edited So anyway, I didn't know where to go. And I talked to people about independent publishing, just being, doing a self-publishing. I like that, but I just knew there's stuff I don't know. And then the editing thing really worried me. The last thing I ever want to do is self-publish a book with lots of errors. And then, next thing you get a review that this is horribly done and then feel bad. A lot of work down the drain. So it's a long story, but through another author who was connected actually to people we fished with, I had no clue, ended up contacting a small publishing group over in Bend, Oregon, called Dancing Moon Press. And it's really a husband and wife team and a few consultants on the side. And so she was actually from Newport and the coast and everything. Her name's Kim. And it just made the world a difference. We had some discussions and I started sending off my manuscript to her, and she had some others look at it and did the developmental edit first. And, I remember I didn't want to be sugar-coated. I said, tell me what you think. I think she thought it had definitely potential, but it wasn't engaging enough. And I didn't have enough dialogue and that type of thing. I wanted, and my goal was to have people become part of it. And I know the early drafts that I maybe thought it did, but it really didn't. So not to the level I wanted. So anyway, that's where we took it to a whole nother level. I learned so much through that process with Kim's guidance on the developmental part. And so I went back and I rewrote the whole thing. And, she was saying, well, memoirs are more in the 70, 80,000 word range rather than 100. And so, I had to make some serious cuts. I got a lot of unreleased material, but sitting in
volume number 2.
Yeah, I've got all these Google Docs of just scraps, of this and that. I had to check out. But and so I don't know how many times I went back and really revised it. I can't count. It was just over and over and over of just the developmental content part. And then with that goal of getting people to really engage, and that it just came to life. I mean, so much more than, the original version after 2 years. And that's where I really got excited about it. And then they really helped guide toward publishing and getting, the whole thing.
But Terry was kind of a storyteller. He's very good at storytelling, and I think and he actually was a better writer than he gives himself credit. He was an amazing writer, and I think that's where his dad and I kind of thought, you should do more with this and stuff. And but he's naturally just quite a storyteller and stuff. And like he would come home and tell me something from school, and all of a sudden and I'm kind of like, now what was the original thing that you were going to tell me? Because he would start telling stories and stuff. So I think his hardest part was trying to condense it, because he is such a story, and then to keep people engaged in his book, as well as he really wanted his dad's voice to come out in the book. And that's what's so wonderful, is even in his journal and stuff like that, he would write some of the things that his dad would say, because his dad just would always say things, and you kind of we would laugh about it later, and stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, that's Bruce.
He'd get really excited.
Yeah, he'd get excited.
About a spice.
Yeah,
on food.
He as he does too. Yeah. But he so I think that's how he kind of like, yeah, I think I can do this, because he just is naturally very good at telling stories. And that's one thing you'll find in his book, is that you can hear his dad talking in the book. He's very good about that, as well as other people. And he kept track of all the stories, and he's got a great memory of what another fisherman would say to him and stuff. So you can hear all that in the book. And that's what's amazing about his book.
Yeah, please tell us about your book. We'd love to know how were you able, through those quotes, like, is there a quote that sticks out about your father the most?
Yeah, so yeah, the book just chronicles the 15 seasons that I fished. Some a lot, I got to fish a lot when the seasons were longer, and some of the seasons were short. When I was in the Coast Guard, I joined. I actually, maybe this make it a little clear why I did that. But when I graduated from high school, I wasn't in the academic mind for college. It wasn't even on the radar at all, and then I was a little spooked to go into the fishing industry as a teenager, 18, because I've seen some of the guys, some of the situations. There's some really good situations, but there was no guarantee I'd end up on that. And so, you can end up with the wrong crowd too. So in the wintertime, it's a whole different deal than the trolling industry in the summer, total different world. And so I was a little spooked by that. I just wasn't sure I wanted or was really ready. So I didn't know what to do. And Dad kind of pointed me, he'd seen the Coast Guard and pointed me toward that. And I was a little reluctant on that too. But actually he was right. And that was a great experience. But my biggest worry was never getting to fish for 4 years or ever again. And that was still, I got stationed close enough I could sneak off, and I made it work mostly, at least to get in, at least a couple weeks during a season or more sometimes. So, but anyway, so that chronicles that, and then the rest of the fishing, I picked it up again. And as far as like with Dad, he would just get excited over everything, and like there's so many stories, but there was, just sometimes we'd bring up a fish or something, a big halibut or something. And he'd go, "Gosh, did you hear that sound at me?" And I go, "Dad, it didn't make any sound at all. It just splashed." And I'm like, "Where'd you come up with that?" And he would just get so excited. He'd make up these things. And it was like, and he'd go tell these stories. And I'm like, "Well, I don't think it happened quite like that. I was there." But he was so excited. I just let it go because I just loved his excitement over all these things. And he would just, every day we'd get out there and I got a great feeling about this. And, he was just, I don't know. Those were just the times he was just so darn excited about what we were going to do. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stories, there were some days as time went on. And when I got around some bigger boats, I had an opportunity to go aboard some bigger boats and just kind of tag along with my skipper. And I saw a whole different side of some of the bigger boats and guys that are kind of known as the highliners. And so I had one time I would go home and take notes. I'd just go, the guy that was running the bigger boat, he and Mike, he'd go to these other boats and I'd get to see all the secret gear of all these legends. And I'm like, so I'd go home and write it all down, and if I ever got to fish my boat again, I'd use it. Well, I did get to. And so I bought all this gear and I was kind of doing it. He was kind of tapering off the industry and I was kind of going full time, in the summer. So anyway, I got all the new gear out and Dad was just like, "No, this isn't going to work doing it like this." I go, "No, Dad, see all these big boats? This is what they do, and at first, no fish yet. And we're waiting. And he's like, "Yep. So, we need to start breaking out the old stuff." And then finally, they started producing. And so we had these gear differences over time too, sometimes, but those were kind of fun. We were competitive on the boat we had our own sides of the boat. So we would be a little competitive too.
That's sweet. So after your book is published, I've heard writers say that, no longer belongs to you, it belongs to the world. That is, a lot of authors have said this. How did you feel when your book finally hit the stands and people were able to read it?
A little nervous, you get it out there and you're excited and then you go, "Gosh, what if I get this review and it's just somebody rakes me over the coals and it's just a disaster." And I didn't, I know that's possible. And maybe, not everybody's going to like it. So that's real possible. So, I can have a thick enough skin to deal with that. But what if there's lots of them or I don't know, I was just making all this stuff up. But so that was a little challenging there, and you're kind of a memoir, you're kind of putting yourself out there, it's not a fictional story where it's just, whatever, but it's your life and all of that. So you're kind of like giving people a peek into your life, that maybe he's not always comfortable. So that was hard at first. It got a really good reception, and that was like, wow, okay, you like it. Thank you. And so the challenging part though is you get it written, for better or worse, it's out there, and then you got to market it. You suddenly got to promote yourself and figure ways to do that. And I mean, this isn't a New York Times bestseller or anything like that, so I don't have a big corporation behind it pushing it out there. So you're self advertising it in ways you can to still make it profitable too. I mean, part of it's just the ride and the journey and all that, and that's cool. But you do want to pay a few bills on it, it's not free. So how do you do that with, in a way that, it's not too expensive and stuff. So just trying to be creative with social media and then it's just going out there face to face with some people and contacting a lot of people, and then there's sometimes you don't hear back, or or a little rejection, and but I guess the real cool thing is that the number of opportunities that came up too, and things like that I never would have dreamed it, like this. Yeah.
We're honored to celebrate you and this book. And how can people find your book? Let's talk about that while we're talking about it.
It's on Amazon. That's probably the most accessible. It is on Barnes and Noble, and then there's all sorts of places that picked it. Other little book companies and stuff that I'm not really familiar with. I don't even know how they got it, but Amazon and Barnes are probably the two most accessible if you're just trying to get it online. Got it in a few bookstores along the Oregon coast. It's in 22 libraries from Homer, Alaska, I think, to Oakland, California. I think how far down? I think I've got it down there. So yeah, there's some libraries along the coast and several in the Seattle area, and I think mostly at that part of Washington. So yeah. So yeah,
it's 1 year today.
It is 1 year. Yeah, this is the anniversary.
Yeah.
No way! Today, I'm honored.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a great
anniversary. This is wonderful. I can't believe you accomplished that much in a year. I self-published a children's book with a friend. We co-wrote a book, and we did the self-publishing route. And man, it was marketing and pushing those books. And I understand how hard it can be, and the rejection, how much that is a part of it. It's just part of the process. But even getting your book in a library is a big deal, because it has to go through approval process. And it's not just like, here's a book to donate. So that is a really amazing that you were able to accomplish all that within a year. How much was your publishing company helpful at all in that direction, or was this all on you?
They were huge in getting it on Amazon, helped me do that. I had no idea how to do that. So they were big on that. And then some guidance. She's written several books. So, she could provide some guidance of where to look and how to do it. And so to help me launch that. And I've emailed a few times for some tips on this and that. And she's always been available to help out, if I had a question and stuff. So she's been supportive on that.
It's nice. That's more than most people get from small publishing houses. And the fact that she was able to help with edits and help you, make the book really good. That's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
So what is the biggest takeaway you would like readers to have from your book, 15 Seasons?
The big goal would be, several. Part of it is just for the reader to feel like they're immersed in the whole sensory experience of the book and the industry and understanding of it, but also understanding the culture, the people, so many personalities, the people, the relationship between my dad and I, and just what a great guy he was, and having D'Ann kind of jump in on this midstream through the whole process was awesome. I want people to know that. But yeah, I think it was an industry. The dories are flat bottom boats. Right now, down in California, Newport Beach, if you're familiar with Newport Beach, maybe there's a small dory fleet there that's been there forever, and they sell their fish off the beach and things. And we visited that once and just took a look at that, and I've seen it online and stuff. But here, Pacific City by Cape Kiwanda is a place where that's taken place since probably the 1940s or something, with flat bottom boats and different designs over the years. But that's kind of the epicenter of the dory fleet. And so whenever boats were commercial, a lot of boats were commercial fishing, that was the place. But all up and down the coast, dories would travel up and down, and then different ports all along the Oregon coast, there would be dory fleets. And Newport had a big dory fleet. We didn't go off to surf. We went out to the harbor and the bar and everything like that. But there was a big fleet there. I don't know, 100 boats or whatever. And it was a whole culture. And, there's hardly any now. And so a lot of people, I think, whole generation and didn't even know that existed. In the dory, and a lot of people up here still, if they're been, along the coast, know the dories go off Pacific City. It's mostly sport fishing. There's a few guys, commercial fish still there. But, mostly it's just a Pacific City thing. But, few realize now that was a coast-wide thing, and there were dories everywhere up and down the coast. And it's just some fabulous people, and just like I said, the whole culture of it. Part of this was just almost in a sense an artifact of, let's not forget that too, and so, yeah, there's just a lot of pieces. But I hope the other thing too is that, and I've had people say this, which is really cool, is that the book resonated with them. I've had people who don't really necessarily get into fishing enjoy the book, which makes me happy to hear that just maybe that relationship I've had with my father and what we did, they had something like that too. It could have been cooking or whatever, hiking or something, but it just that, they have that connection. And so that's cool. I just didn't want it. So it was just to fishermen only. It could be to anybody.
He's really had a lot of great responses, and even from women that have read it and loved it. And so it's been a very good response. And
this has been so wonderful to talk with you both, and you're such a lovely couple. Those were first words out of my mouth when I saw you all on Zoom. Like, lovely couple.
Thank you.
Thank you both for sharing your heart and your time and your vulnerabilities, both professionally and within your relationships, and your love and passion for commercial fishing, because it truly is a unique lifestyle that only we can understand, and how incredible that we all can share this bond no matter what part of life we're in, whether in fishing or not right now. So thank you again for your time. And I'll put all the information in the show notes for people to pick up 15 Seasons by Terry Evers. And thanks again, y'all.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I so appreciate you being here. There really is nothing like speaking to the commercial fishing community and those who support it. And not only that, the actual partners of commercial fishermen, the girlfriends, fiancés, wives, and partners, because it truly is a totally different, unique experience that no one can understand except other POCFs. So thank you so much for listening. And if you would like to support our community even further, you can tap the subscribe button, share with family and friends, post on socials, or write a review. The reviews would be so incredibly helpful for others to see that we're out there, and we can get all up in their algorithm to see that they're not alone. You know how it is. And if you're a POCF looking for more resources on how to navigate this unique lifestyle, things from long distance dating to motherhood advice, you can visit POCFpride.com. That's POCFpride.com, and we can't wait to meet you. I need to take a minute to shout out our private forum. It is just getting better and better every day, and I want to take a moment to tell you about how incredible it is. So our private forum is a VIP members-only community with POCFs. It's for you to connect with other partners of commercial fishermen around the world whenever you want, need, or seek support. And the bonuses are that this is the only way that you get access to monthly Zoom calls to connect with other members on topics that are important to you, private podcast series where I publish behind closed doors conversations from guests that you've heard on this podcast. And let me tell you, that's when the tea is spilled. That is the good stuff. It's where they feel comfortable to speak to other POCFs because they are as well. And it's just real nice. Easy to navigate topics so you can join or start conversations with other POCFs as you please. There's no searching and figuring out what people have been talking about. Everything is beautifully categorized. So you can jump in to getting married to a fisherman, mom advice, the list goes on and on. This is also the place that you can ask questions or vent with love without judgment. We know you love your fishermen. We also know that it can be tough sometimes with this lifestyle. You can talk to us and we'll never judge you. This is your safe space. This is also this is the place that you have the ability to ask me questions, seek advice, or get feedback. And this is the only way to currently reach me directly. I'm so excited and proud and I'm amazed about how this community has grown. And this is the best way for us all to commune. It's just social medias and emails are kind of getting out of control. And I would love to have our personal connection in this forum. So this is where you can reach me. There's also private resources from money management to mental health, you name it. It's going to be ongoing, added, juicy memory bank of resources constantly for forum members. There's also quarterly virtual events with trusted professionals that focus on the lifestyle challenges that we have and how to overcome them. And you also get first access to annual in-person events and to hang out with your fish sisters in real life, y'all. So if you want to check it out, you can go to meganwaldrop.com/private-forum, and there is the beautiful landing page for you to learn all about these goodies and how to become a member too. We really, really cannot wait to meet you. And if you have any questions, you can email me and my team at support@meganwaldrop.com. I got you.
Thanks for listening today. Being here means you're a part of the POCF family, and we wouldn't be a community without you. I'm Megan, and this is the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. As always, much love, POCF pride, and remember, you are not alone.